Yeah, it was, maybe not that bad, but it was.
This conference will now be recorded.
Because it's like, I don't want
And then do you have that?
What the hell, meeting May 2nd.
And then I watched how fast.
Mics are all on?
Maybe I didn't need to.
Okay. Welcome to the May 2nd City Council meeting. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hagan?
Here.
Councilmember Bellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Crumick?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Swift?
Here.
And Mayor House?
Here. I would like, on the consent calendar, I want to pull number 3. I want to have a little discussion on that. And I'll accept a vote for the balance. Or, excuse me, I'll accept a motion for the balance.
I would move to approve the balance.
I have a motion to approve the balance. Do I have a second?
Yep. Second. Mayor Elves, regarding item number 2, I will be abstaining on check number 9855.
Okay.
So I will move to approve the balance with the request.
All right, very good. And we have a second? We did.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, number 3. All I want to say about number 3 is I think we're making a mistake here. I think we should have just moved forward with a contract and got that thing going. Instead of sitting now, we're going to sit another year behind it. I know there's some apprehension in terms of what could happen with senior housing on the property, but I don't think this was the route to choose, and that's just my input, and I'm ready to take a vote for this now. Now, by the way, does this need a vote on, or is it?
It was pulled, so we would have to vote on it separately.
Good,
Yes.
I'm glad I pulled it.
So I would move to approve number 3.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? I oppose. Okay, 4-1. So let's move on to staff communication. Police Department activity report for March, animal control report for March.
Yes, those items were from the last meeting. We didn't make that meeting, and so we're putting them on this meeting. And if you have any questions, you can ask Chief Lackey. We also have some updates from all department heads, and so I'll go last. Go ahead.
Alrighty.
Go ahead, Chief.
What's
Do you
that?
have any staff communications?
No, unless you have questions.
I don't. Does anyone have a question for staff? We're looking good here.
Nothing? Sure. Going on, okay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I wanted to just give you a little bit of update. The city of Escalon submitted their Arpa annual report this last week. So we submitted on time. This is a report that spans more than a year, and there'll be an annual report each year. So based on the budgets that were approved by this council, we've submitted reimbursement, although this is not really reimbursement in that they pre-fund it. Our amount for our first annual report was $187,420, and it's made up of each one of the elements that council approved, so essential support to households, community well-being and communication, COVID mitigation and prevention, wastewater sustainability project, and recovery of city government. Each one of those had some expenditures on them. Okay? Just wanted to let you know.
So the reimbursement came from where?
So it's an annual expenditure report. So the federal government actually pre-funded a portion of this, a greater amount than this 187. But that's what's been spent in the first year that we claimed.
187's been spent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any questions for staff? No questions for staff.
Justin, do you have anything to report on?
Yes, I do. I've got a quick update. I wanted to give everybody an update on Caltrans. I know it's still been a little bit of a process for them, and they have gone out to bid to do the repaving on 120. So as soon as we have an update on what contractor got that and when they will start, I will give you that date. As well, I just wanted to send out a big thank you to Jessica Wiley and all the volunteers for Love Escalon this weekend. We picked up approximately 50 to 60 bags of trash from them this weekend that they cleaned up for us, along with painting dead-end stops and doing work at the baseball field and animal shelter. Just awesome to see everybody from the city out there. I think they had almost close to 100 volunteers helping out this weekend. So thank you very much to everybody that helped out there. And that's all I have unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for staff? No questions. Okay, we're moving on. What do you got?
I have one item for staff communications. As you may recall, we have a process where a member of the public can put in for an agenda item to be reviewed by the council and/or put on the agenda for potential action. If you recall, maybe 2 months ago, the city council approved a resolution approving an appointment process to fill vacancies on the city council. And that was specific to appointments in regards to Government Code Section 36512, which is, filling in a remainder of a term seat. We have received a request from Kurt Danzinger. The description of that item is to create a process in which this or any future city council approves appointments for any appointed positions within the city, which would include Planning Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, etc. And they requesting to review that policy and apply it across the board to any other positions that have appointments, which would be Planning Commission and Parks and Rec. And so if council, I need a majority of the council to support whether this item would be on the agenda for discussion at the next meeting.
Do we have support for the item, gentlemen? Anyone?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. It would be a little more consistent, so we're not, it would be a little more consistent if we did like that, sure. Talk about it, yeah.
Do you need a motion to vote or any of that?
Consensus.
Consensus? Is there anyone opposed of it? Okay, it looks like you got your consensus.
Okay, we'll go ahead and schedule that for the next meeting. And that's all I have.
Okay, no more questions for staff before we move on? All right, here we go. Matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any items that's on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on the item not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council's discretionary decision made by the mayor. All right, anyone in the audience would like to come up and speak, you're welcome to do so now. Just give us your name and go ahead and explain to us what's on your mind.
I'm Ann Shaddix, and I thought you'd like to hear some good news. First of all, the chamber was wonderful on Saturday for Love Escalon. They had a special session for the seniors to play bingo. They had food. It was well received. Everybody had a great, great time. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of in my commissioner role, I take very seriously the food programs here. And so although I'm not a food expert, I did test the meals, both those served at the community center and those meals on wheels. And I looked for variety, quality, freshness, particularly any expiration of dates on anything. And they were wonderful. I don't think anybody could complain at all. But in one of them, there was an Easter egg with some candy, and I had to track that down because it was not on the menu. Come to find out, Karen Corey, who is your food person, who is responsible for the food at the center, always does something special for seniors. She always has birthday cakes or cupcakes or something special. You really have a prized person there. That group does a marvelous job. And the food that was served, I think you should be proud of what the people in Escalon are getting. The other thing that our objective has been to keep seniors active, and I wanted to share with you what one of our seniors told us this week. I used to be in my house all the time. Now they have exercise Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays, plus exercise on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I am now out of my house socializing 5 days a week. You should be proud of that. You should be proud of what's happening. The other thing is then we started asking the seniors, and I'm telling you this because I don't know if you know it, but we had asked the seniors what they wanted to do next. Well, they want to have a singing group. Well, that's all good until you ask for a director. And then, but the first thing we did was look at the piano because I could tell it was out of tune, or some of us could tell it was out of tune. So the Fun Bunch, with their funds, tuned the piano for you. But you might also want to know that that was a 1901 Steinway piano, and that is a gift. Whoever gave it, make sure it's always taken good care of, because you have something there that's worth something if it was refinished. So out of that, we have now a director. Dwayne Lovett will be our director, and Joanne Marshall will be our piano player. So we will begin starting we'll begin starting a singing group. So I know you're working hard on senior housing. Thank you for all of what you're doing. I was asked today, or not today, but when I spoke at the Manteca invited me to come and talk to their board, and they said, how does Escalon make things happen? And I said, it starts with the city council first, the city staff next, and then get yourself a team of workers, and it's all downhill after that. So we have a great program. Thank you for your support, and thank you for your work on senior housing.
So Ann, when's your first concert? When's your first concert?
Well, Dwayne says that they're going to sing for the Fun Bunch in July, but don't be too surprised if sometime I invite them with your permission to come
That'd be
here as
great.
well.
That'd be excellent. Thank you, Ann, for all you do.
Thanks, Ann. Yes.
All right, anyone else would like to come up and speak on any particular thing they'd like to speak on?
My name's Betty Bennett, and I have a question for the city council. Was Bella Terra Estates, was that a separate contract for our maintenance for our lawns and Brennan from the rest of Escalon that gets mowed?
I think there's more than one. I think there's
You
a
have
couple.
two parks in the center.
Correct. But I think the,
I'm just saying, was that bid separately so that we know what comes out of our funds?
everything is, right, there's different funding for different groups, and it's all itemized. And I think, how many are there that we have?
4 or 5,
There's 4 or 5. And the one you're in is Bella what?
Bella Terra Estates.
Military.
And what would you like to know about it?
I just wanted to know if our contract was separate, so you know how much to pay out of our funds.
Oh, of course. Yeah, they're audited every year too, by the way.
Yeah, that will actually come before council in the next month or so. Every year, we have to update the LLD and BAD assessments. And so all of those will have a public hearing in the next month.
And my other one is for Justin. The sprinklers. You had a meeting with them 2 months ago about them coming and fixing them, and they haven't been there. And I talked to the guys that do maintenance, and they say it's a different group that does sprinklers. They have nothing to do with the sprinklers, if they're working or if they're not.
In the park?
On Brennan and on Brennan,
On Brennan.
yeah.
That's part of Bella Terra?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I just curious. Okay.
Justin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'll definitely look into it, make sure the sprinklers are working and working properly for sure.
Yeah, and what are they gonna do with the plants they pulled out in the medium? The guys said that they wanted to put bark in there, and they said no, because when they blow it, the bark will go all over. So
Well,
they're-
there's a little bit more to that story, and I can get in contact with you and explain more, but there will not be a lot more plants going in there. And there might not be any bark, but there may be some cedar shredding that does go in there. There will be something that goes in there, but we're trying to decide on the two, what will be maintenance-free, hassle-free, and something that will look nice.
And then what happens if plants keep dying and they keep pulling them out? Since we're paying for them to maintain that, they should be maintaining it. Our dollars shouldn't be going for not watering plants and having plants pulled out.
No, we will replace plants as needed as I see fit. And if they pull anything out, it's because the plants have died themselves. And there is a lot of stuff that's there that is multiplied that we want to get cleaned out, but we definitely do not want things to look bare.
Okay, because I know that you had a meeting with them 2 months ago and nobody's been working on the sprinklers. And summer's coming up, so we'll have more plants dying.
Maybe not quite the sprinklers you're speaking of, but they have for sure worked on sprinklers because you and myself have both paid for them, and I've seen that. But I will go out and when I have some time here soon, then I will walk it and make sure myself and address them as I see fit. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I appreciate it.
Because they said they don't do sprinklers. They do mowing and blowing and trimming, and that's it. They said sprinklers are not in there. They only have a limited time. They can do stuff, and that they have somebody comes out.
That is correct, but that is correct, ma'am. But they all work for Grover, and there is a sprinkler crew that does work for Grover that is responsible for that. Not necessarily the people that are on the mowers and the other machinery, but there is a group at Grover that is responsible for sprinklers, and I will make sure that I speak with them.
Okay, I appreciate it. Just making sure my dollars are spent wisely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
We appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the audience this evening who would like to come up and speak on any particular item at all? Feel free. You have 5 minutes of time. You can use up here, explain why you're here or why you don't want, whatever. It's open for 5 minutes. And we have no one looking. They're going to come down and speak. So we're going to close this. And we're going to come back and we're going to move on to administrative matters. Approve the capital improvements plan update associated with fiscal year 2021-22. Budget adjustments. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the result of a review of the capital improvement plan. This is part of the budget that was provided to you back in June and approved. That budget included a capital improvement plan of $8,362,000 for a variety of projects, which are listed in the attachment. In the review of those projects, of course, throughout the year, things change. Certain things become more urgent, other things kind of fall back. So before you tonight is the results of that review. What we have before us is some dollar adjustments to existing projects. Water well number 1, the construction increase for chlorinator and power upgrade, which has become evident that needs to occur for that project. Water well number 10 is a rewiring improvement project. The water generator well site is budgeted. We want to keep it there, but we know that amount can be reduced due to a postponement and a reevaluation once these other water wells are complete. Water valve replacement increase. This is an expansion of that project to be fully complete. The team has asked that be increased by $70,000.
Let me ask you a question. How did it go from 70 to another 70,000? How could you be that far off?
Well, it's not necessarily far off. It has to do with the timing of when these activities can occur. And Justin, do you want to talk a little bit about that water valve replacement project?
Where is the water valve replacement at?
Yeah, no, I can explain. Some of the reasons why it's gone up, there's a couple of water valves that are actually in the middle of the intersection of McHenry and 120. There's also some on McHenry and Catherine that need to be addressed. And what had happened was when these things got budgeted before, we had a certain amount, and we realized through the process that we had a couple more that were completely shut down. And then with the pricing changing and the permitting from Caltrans and the safety that needs to be set up on 120 for Caltrans is just a little bit more at this point in the game than it was last year at this point.
Okay.
So the total for the water fund is actually a decrease of $50,000. The wastewater fund, there's 3 items there. Wastewater McHenry flow controllers needed to, I think that was an added on project. Wastewater lift station improvement, Kerrigan material increase, that just increase of costs. Wastewater SCADA server upgrade, that became evident that we need to make that upgrade. And so that actually increases from the wastewater fund by 50,000. The end result is that there's no difference in the bottom line of the CIP project, but both of those funds, water and wastewater, would be adjusted for these projects. In addition, I just wanted to go ahead, Justin.
I just wanted to clarify for council on the water valving, just to understand. So the valving that we're talking about on the street are the valves that actually shut down our water lines in order to isolate. For instance, if we get a water leak, right now we have situations where we're not able to turn certain hydrants off. So if they get hit, we would have to turn multiple neighborhoods off, along with certain valves in the neighborhood is the reason why they're needing to get replaced. So we're only affecting a small amount of people rather than quite a few people at one time.
Thank you, appreciate that. In addition, just for full information, wanted to let you know that the transfers approved back in December for the ARPA funds will be done with this item, and also the Measure K projects, which were already in the CIP, those carryover funds are being applied. So we've gotten confirmation on that, and we'll be applying those. So this item provides the proposed updates, and with your approval, we will make those updates to the project and those updates to the budget.
You need a vote, is that what you need?
Yes, please.
Okay, do you have a motion?
Move to approve.
Wait a minute, do we have to discuss all this first out there? Yeah. Okay, open it up to the public. All right, does anyone in the public would like to address what we've been discussing regarding these adjustments to our budget for the capital improvement program? If so, please come to the podium. Or anyone on the phone lines? I hear no one, so I'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Gentlemen, anything you want to talk about? Okay, I will accept the motion.
Move to approve.
Second, somebody?
Second?
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we'll move on. I'm sorry?
Thanks, Claire.
Oh, you're welcome. We're on to item number 6 now. Receive presentation on the Charter City and provide direction to staff.
Okay, this is my item. So I understand that you wanted a presentation on charter cities, but I don't understand what the motivation was, and so I wanted to just talk about it a little bit, because were you interested in just learning about the differences between a charter city and a general law city? Because if you were, what Mark sent you is very up-to-date, it's very comprehensive and thorough. And so if you just wanted to learn about it, that will tell you everything you want to know.
Councilman Crummage, I think you were the one that was interested the most. Do you have any questions for Ann?
Yes, Mayor Alves, thank you. So I appreciate this being on the agenda tonight. I brought a number of meetings ago the idea forward of Escalon transitioning sort of its form of government from a general law city to a charter city. It was an intriguing idea to me that I think would allow us to have more freedom and more ability to affect certain things that go on in this town as far as where our money is spent. A big one was how we engage with prevailing wage contracts, which are often make it difficult to get things done. So it's a really big idea, though. I mean, asking the city to draft a charter, and there's a certain process. There's 2 ways, as I outlined. One is the city council can draft it. It has to be ratified by a vote by the community, or the city council can form a committee outside of itself to draft that charter. But I think it's important to note that Sacramento, I mean, the capital of California, is a charter city, to my knowledge. And if they want to be a charter city and have a little bit more freedom to operate, even outside of the policies that the politicians in the capital promote, I think it's something to consider. And that's just one example. There are a lot of cities in California, but most of them are general law cities. So I'm not exactly sure how to move forward with this. I would need the council to support this idea and want to put the work in to draft a charter. But I guess for this meeting tonight, because you're asking for clarification, I guess I would ask, maybe we can put this on another agenda. What are the benefits that the city of Escalon could directly utilize as a charter city versus a general law city? That would be my question, that staff or the council, legal counsel could present to us. Because from my research, there is a whole host of benefits to being a charter city. And so that is what I'm looking for. It's a big idea, but I know that there are benefits to forming a charter that the city operates under as its essential constitution that can trump state law in many cases, which I think is a great thing, especially for small communities, because we are we're kind of at the will of the state a lot of times. So I guess just to wrap it up, my question would be, if we could get a presentation of the benefits that Escalon could see in becoming a charter city versus a general law city is I think what might kick off the discussion.
My question, those benefits you mentioned you knew about, could you explain to us what those benefits were when you looked them up, so we'd know?
Yeah, I didn't bring the documents that I brought before, but the big ones is you have more control over where your tax dollars are spent. You have control over government contracts as far as prevailing wage jobs. If it doesn't, basically anything that doesn't align with the charter itself, the city has drafted that says this is what we want, can oftentimes supersede what the state says, even if it's in direct conflict with the state or if it goes against what the state mandates. So I think I can't outline it specifically. I'm sorry, not tonight, all the things I brought up, but I think it is an idea that we should not, just cast aside. I think there's a lot of potential there for more. Basically, it creates more local control, which is something we want. So I think it's something to consider.
Does anyone else like to add or questions for staff regarding?
Yeah, I do. I have a thought on that. I'm wondering if it, as for us to try to digest the 60 pages that were originally sent to us and all that, I'm wondering if this would maybe be better as a forum between, let's say, the council and let's say either a representative from the League of California Cities who is, I don't know what your expertise in with the law, but I don't know if this is your area of expertise. It'd be real nice to be able to talk to somebody that has their area of expertise, either with BBK or maybe preferably League of California Cities on this one.
Okay. So
What do you think?
To answer your question, I mean, the toolkit was done by the league.
Okay.
And so, I guess what I like, and I researched this before I brought it to you. For example, one of our cities asked, specifically wanted to adopt a property transfer tax that larger than what was allowed, generally. And so, that was what they wanted to do because they, by becoming a charter city, that's what, there was, so generally speaking, it's true that charter cities have control over municipal affairs and as opposed to matters of statewide concern. But what that means is subject to interpretation. And more over the years, the legislature has adopted laws that specifically say this is a matter of statewide concern and applies to charter cities too.
Yeah.
And not only have they done that more and more over the years, but at any time they could say that an existing law that didn't before apply to charter cities now does. And there's been a lot of litigation with respect to prevailing wage. Charter, and you said Sacramento, San Francisco, Stockton, there are a lot of charter cities, but that's just because they were historically formed that way. It's not, and originally there was a lot of benefit. But over the years, both the legislature and the courts have really narrowed the distinction. And, the things that that you have stated that, you'd rather not have to comply with, that I could think of are prevailing wage is one. Now, it used to be that charter cities didn't have to comply with that. But in 2013, the legislature adopted SB 7, which basically says if you are a charter city and you exempt yourself from the prevailing wage laws, then you're not going to get any state funding for any of your projects. That's what it says. And that was challenged. A bunch of charter cities sued, and they lost. And the judge said, this is just, if you can not pay prevailing wage as long as you're willing to not accept any state money. So it's just, that's not a big advantage. Other things that, for example, all this affordable housing requirements and the accessory dwelling unit law, those are charter cities have to comply with that. The SB 1383, the big solid waste overhaul and having to divert organic waste and all that, charter cities have to comply with that. What else? I mean, there are a lot of things. Oh, if you thought you could get out of complying with the building code, that's out. That applies across the board. So that's why I'm asking, if there was something specific that you thought you could, you don't see other cities, clamoring to become charter cities. If there was a big benefit to it, if you could, opt out of a lot of important state laws or significant state laws, then everybody would be doing it. So, and it's a lot of time spent and a lot of money spent. And, I think if you were going to go down that road, and I put in here, what the procedure you would have to go through in order to get it on the November ballot. And you'd have to have a public hearing notice out by the middle of this month for your first public hearing.
I said August.
And so I'm just wondering, before you just go down that road, are the benefits, do the benefits outweigh are they worth it? And one of our cities recently asked, there were a couple of memos, which I could send to you. What are the financial benefits? And this, one of my associates did all the research and really said there are no significant financial benefits. Now, whether there would be other benefits and whether you care about other benefits, in a charter, you can decide how much the council members are going to earn. You're not subject to that limit. You could make more. Like the city of Bell, that was a charter city. That's not a very good example,
public
but
line.
it is something that's a concern. And you could put in, different ways to govern yourself. Like you could put in your charter that you were going to have a strong mayor, for example. And you could put in there that you were going to have term limits, or like the way you govern yourself. There's quite a bit of latitude. But if the reason, and I suspect, your motivation would be, to not have to comply with this or that law. And if you had something in mind that we could research, that I haven't already covered, like if there's something you really don't want to have to comply with, I could research that and come back and say, is that an exempt matter or not?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I looked at it because as a member of this council, somebody who believes strongly in the ideas of liberty and small government and limited government, and over the last 3.5 years, I guess, that I've been on here, it's very evident that a lot of stuff comes down on us that we have no control over, essentially. And I think that is a big problem, because the city council, people who live in Escalon, we should be able to govern ourselves the way we see fit that works for us. And I looked at the charter city option as maybe one small step forward to that, more local control. So I still think it's a good idea. I still want to keep talking about it. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure how to move forward. It seems like we need to be a little bit more educated on it. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year, but maybe in subsequent years, it's something that the city would want to adopt and pursue, because the more you can control what goes on within the limits of our town, that we don't just have to be forced on us from Sacramento or the state government or anything like that. If we can form our own constitution where we say, this is what we believe in and how we want to run this town, and we can get as detailed with it as we want, I think it's something that we should consider, even if it takes a while and a lot of work.
Okay, Councilman, does anyone else like to add anything here?
Just a quick question. I was doing a little bit of research on that, and from what I can tell, about 25% of the cities, give or take, in the state are currently
Right.
charter cities.
Yeah, about a quarter.
I didn't get my hands on a list of those. I'm sure it's posted somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But of those, the 1 in 4 cities that are charter cities, is there a common theme to population density sizes, revenues, or budgets, or anything like that? Is it mostly large cities that are that make up that 25% of the number of cities that are doing this, or is there a combination? Is there, more advantages to a town that's got a budget, 100 times the size of ours versus the smaller size, and we're not going to get the benefits and some of the financial side of things, maybe? Just a little curious on maybe something like that.
I could find that out.
Just curious, if, generally, this is about the smallest city that's ever done it to a benefit to them or something, maybe we can talk to them or something and see how they do with it.
It'd also be interesting to find out when they become.
Yeah.
Okay,
If I may add something just really briefly, and I really do appreciate your explanation. That is kind of sort of like a lot of what I was reading too. But I've got to give Councilmember Crumick a kudo for thinking outside of the box on this big issue, and that's a good idea. So I got to give him a kudo for that as well.
all right, well, I'm not really sure. I ran through most of this stuff too. And the way this is written, it doesn't sound like it's a great idea because the way it's written, I don't know if this is the only opinion that's out there, but the opinion based on this paper doesn't look like it's a good idea. But I mean, that's the paper itself. I read it and it doesn't point us in the direction that it's a great idea. So if there's other opinions, maybe we should look at those too. I don't know. I know in the past, people thought because if you became a charter city, you can get away from prevailing wage. But like Ann stated, SB 7 was put into place not too long ago, I guess, and that kind of killed that.
Yeah, it was directed at charter cities.
Right, of course it was.
That was
Yeah, heaven forbid the state
Close
would
a
have.
loophole somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, at any rate, we could continue to review it. It's not a bad idea to look over, maybe we've missed something here, but at the point we're at now, I don't see it where we're gonna move and make any good ground on this right now. So what we can do is maybe table it with the idea of looking more into it.
And if you think of other questions, like,
Yeah,
if we were
I
a
think,
charter city, would we have?
sure, I think the intent was good. I just don't see enough here to go after it right now. Maybe if we did some more research and found more favorable information, they would change our minds. But for myself, currently, I don't see it. Is there anyone in the audience like to speak regarding this, of course? Come to, give us your name, please.
Thank you, Mayor Alves, Council Kurt Danziger. Along with future presentations, let's talk about what traps charter cities have fallen into through taxations, through compensations of staff and themselves over the years, because there's a lot more to it than prevailing wage.
Well, a lot of it is covered in this, especially chapters 5 and 6.
Yeah, it's pretty much covered all
I
of
didn't
it.
get it. I got a synopsis here off the internet as well. And taxation seems to be one of the big things that these larger cities can go through by themselves. You know, they can write into their charter that they could raise their taxes. There's provisions for property taxes in addition to what the county charges that the city can charge. Everything's always a balance. So what you gain over here, you might get in corruption over here. You're not always going to be there. What are you going to leave in its place? So you need to take the other side of that scale and present that too.
Chapter 5, because it talks about, the problems that charter cities, like the city of Bell, some things that are possible. And, yeah, and so I'm not planning to do a future presentation, if there's, unless the majority of the council wants it, because it just seems like a lot of time to spend, you know, when it doesn't seem.
Well, then I'll hold off on the rest.
Well, until we get more compelling information in favor of it, I don't see us going further on with it. Is there anyone else out there who'd like to speak regarding this? Please come to this podium.
Gary Haskin. This isn't a novel idea. This council, or councils previously have entertained this idea. Definitely once, I believe twice in the last 20 years. Both times, it had no benefit for the city of Escalon. Excuse me. There's only some major downfalls as far as the power structure goes on the city council. But like I said, it's been looked at before. Other councils have looked at it, and they pretty well died on the vine. So unless you want to spend a lot of money on Ann, she's probably happy to do more research. I'd say, you know, let it go.
Okay. Anyone else out there would like to speak regarding this issue? If not, let's go to the phones. Anyone on the phone listening in this evening that'd like to comment on the item? Okay, we don't have anyone on the phones. We don't have any in the audience line. It comes back to the council, and it's for what reason? We're not going to vote on this, are we?
No, it was just.
So it was a discussion.
Yeah, and just to give further direction. Like if
Okay,
there was
well, it was an interesting topic, and there might be something down the line, we don't know. All right, let's go to council communication, and let's start with Councilman Crummage.
Thank you, Mayor Alves. I think the bathroom at Hogan Field, it looks great. I went in there 3 or 4 times over this last weekend with my children, and it's really nice. I think it's one of those things that just really improves the overall look and the feel of the park and the fields. I think there was a little section where they put in a little planter with a couple shrubs, which I think were really a nice touch. Looks like the concrete's still drying out there, and then we can take away the orange netting. But just a huge shout out to staff and Public Works for making that happen. I think it's just a really great thing, and it's going to last for a long time. It's got a water fill station. It's got multiple bathrooms, has a storage. It's just a great thing. So good job, staff and Public Works, Justin. The other thing, I emailed the city manager today again about the MSR, the Municipal Services Review. That is a really significant thing that I don't think we talk about quite enough. Without the MSR, we can't annex in, we can't really grow as a city, you know, in any shape or form. And I'm wondering how the MSR is going to play into this future housing project, since that land technically is not within the city limits. It's within our sphere. Does the MSR, you responded saying it's going to be sent to LAFCO, the draft, in the next week or two, but I really think we need a hard date on when that's going to be submitted. We can start looking at that.
So LAFCO meets monthly, and
Yep.
so we're shooting for the draft that we have completed right now, just finished routing through all of the departments in the city to make sure everything's accurate on the waters, wastewater, those items. And then we're going to submit it over to LAFCO for a pre-review to make sure that it meets all of their requirements and that it's giving all of the information that they're asking for, that nothing is drastically missing. And so we can make those adjustments before we bring it to Planning Commission and Council. And then the document itself does need to go before both the Planning Commission and the Council for review and approval. And at that point, once it's approved, it would be, approved with recommendations from the Planning Commission, sent up to the Council for final review. Then it would go to LAFCO for review. And at that point, when LAFCO approves the Municipal Services Review, that would open up eligibility for the potential for annexations. Right now, the current direction from Council was to prioritize 2 pending applications, which includes the 18-acre property over on the 120. And then there is a small property that's currently in the unincorporated that's owned by the Saron Lutheran Church. And so there's an empty parcel right behind their property. Those are the 2 parcels at this time that have been approved to move forward with annexation once the MSR is complete. We still have that moratorium on the sewer in effect. Once we get this MSR moving forward, that's probably an item that will also come before council, is deciphering whether or not the council wants to remove it or if we can remove it. And so we'll be reviewing that probably around the same time. And at that point, it's council's decision whether or not they want to lift that or keep it in place. If it ends up being lifted, then any of the properties that are within our sphere of influence could apply for annexation, which is the process. So that you would apply, currently right now, the only ones that have authorization at this point are the 18-acre and Sarah Lutheran. But if we removed that moratorium and allowed for annexations, other properties could apply. So
That's a lot of information, but believe it or not, I understand all of it because I've been listening to it for a long time, so.
And it's been a long process. It's been a while since we've done a municipal services review. We don't have any staff in the development department that was here for the last annexation, so it's been quite a long time. And so those type of documents are supposed to be updated and sent to LAFCO every 5 years, and we lapsed for at least 2 cycles because we didn't have any space on the sewer system to be able to move forward.
Sure.
So it's really jumping back on that bandwagon and moving forward, but all annexations are subject to approval by the city council. And so at that time, typically when you're trying to annex land, you want to know what they're going to build on it. So they would submit their application basically showing you their project proposal. And the land would be pre-zoned as well, and so you're knowing how to zone it for when it comes into the city, and then what potentially would be located on that land.
Can we, is the draft MSR going to be sent to LAFCO in May, or is it going to be sent to LAFCO in June?
So this first round is just making sure everything's concise. That's going the end of this week or early next week.
So it'll be for their meeting in May?
That will be for their staff to review and make sure everything is good. And then it comes to our bodies first.
Okay.
To make sure, we want to make sure we don't bring something to you that doesn't meet what they're looking for and we end up having to do it again. And so they've asked for a pre-review so that they could give us feedback and address anything. And then once that's issued or addressed, then we bring it to our bodies to make sure it's okay, then it goes to LAFCO.
I just want to make the point, LAFCO sounds like this big organization where you send documents. It's pretty much one man. I sat on LAFCO, and it's one guy who figures this stuff out, and he's got a lot of authority to decide what is going to go through and what's not. So I think it's just important to know that. So hopefully, and I believe he will, hopefully in June, I guess, if it gets on LAFCO's meeting, that they could send it back to us, and then we could keep this thing moving.
Yeah, this first round, it won't even go to a meeting. It's basically Jim Glazner.
Yeah, Jim Glazner, yeah.
Making sure it hits all because LAFCO is the local agency formation commission. And so they're basically the body that any city has to go through in order to annex any land.
Right.
So they have to review everything, and every county has one. And so once he reviews and makes sure we're hitting all the items needed, it would go to both planning commission and council and then back to them, and that's when it would hit their agenda.
When I was on LAFCO, there was I think it was a development around the outskirts of Tracy, and they were trying to annex in some land for a bigger housing development, but they had been on the waiting list, I believe it was 20 years. So I know these things take time, but squeaky wheel gets the grease. Let's push it forward. Let's get the MSR done. Let's bring it back. We're already behind where we should be. And there's things that we can do and I think should do for this city that require that MSR to be in place and bring it back through the staff and commission and the council. So I would just encourage us to really push that thing forward.
Yeah, now that everybody's reviewed it in-house and our other agencies, like it went through, we've reached out to other services in town, which would include fire department, ambulance, those to include that information because it's looking at the city services as a whole, which includes services that are not provided by the city. And so it's basically trying to get all that information together in one document to take to them.
Absolutely, thank you. Just a couple more things. Is the city currently operating under a watering schedule for landscaping? Is there certain days that people can water?
Yes.
What are those days?
Do you recall what the days are for watering? I know we've got odds and addresses.
Odds and evens, yeah.
We could pull it up off the website here.
And then my other question was, does the city properties and the city Hall and the surrounding thing, are they operating under the same watering schedule, or are they exempt from what we are requiring from everybody else?
That is a good question.
Because in my mind, I'm just bringing it up because I think whatever we're requiring people that live in this community to do, and if we're gonna require them to water once a week or twice a week, and their lawn's gonna die and look bad, and the city has a beautiful green lawn, and we water 8 days a week, I think that that's not right. And I think that the city should operate under the same rules that we apply to the community. And if our lawn dies, so be it. So I just think we should play under the same rules as far as watering goes within this drought environment that California is in. So I'd just like to make that point. Okay, thank you. The very last thing is it's important that the city of Escalon is a comfortable place. That's what makes people want to live here. That's comfortable. It's safe. You can walk. You can walk the streets at night. Feel safe. Certain elements of this community have needs. Right now, we've had a lengthy discussion. It's going to continue. We're talking about senior housing. We're talking about finding a way to make this happen, the right project that meets the needs of this community. It is our responsibility. It is absolutely our responsibility as a city council to move these items forward that have to do with the quality of life of this town. And we are missing a big thing right now where people, as they get older, there's no place for them to live in this town. They have to move outside of this town. So I would just like to reemphasize that we can't let this idea of getting quality senior housing that fits the needs of this community, we cannot let it go. We have to keep pushing it forward. We have to find a way to make it happen. We have the opportunity. We've had community input, and so I would just encourage the community, everybody sitting out there, as well as this council, that no matter who's sitting up here in the coming years, this is something that absolutely has to be moved forward, and we have to find a way to do it. We cannot give up on this. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Hagan.
I would second that as far as the, making sure that we can do something for the seniors, ideally, try our best to make it happen. I also wanted to thank the community for coming out to the Love Escalon Day. It was real good to see so many people, spending their time, putting into their own community. And I would like to see or hope to see more people in the future trying to like Councilman Swift said, see what they can do for their community versus their community, what they can do for them, kind of thing. I butchered it a little bit, but pretty much that's what he said.
You're there.
Otherwise, I don't have anything to add at this time. Thank you.
Councilman Bellinger.
Yeah, shout out to Justin, talking about landscape lighting districts. I know that it's been a little while now, but I know you went out and took care of getting the sprinklers fixed up out in the neighborhood I live there behind the Ace Hardware store there, and also sprayed the concrete where we've got some trees that are kind of beating up the sidewalk a little bit, so thank you for that. Quick question for you, Dominique. Where are we at with the bike walk path from St. John to First and Main Street?
You mean the Main Street?
The bike
project?
path, yeah, the Main Street bike project.
They just sent over the agreement, and then we'll be putting that on a future meeting for council review. The project itself was incorporated into last year's budget, and so it's been budgeted. We're trying to move forward with hosting a workshop on that project so that we could meet with all the business owners and have a few workshops to explain that project and its improvements and what will be moving forward with it, so everybody in that area gets an idea of the improvements that would be made in the downtown. We're also looking to revive the First Street project that was discussed a few years ago. We still have monies that were awarded to the city for the First Street project. A portion of it has been completed. When the lumberyard sellers went in, they did the portion of the curb gutter sidewalk. And so it would be the remainder of that portion At one time, we talked about undergrounding utilities and doing all of these items. So we were thinking of combining those projects and doing a workshop on both of them since they'll be tied into each other. Pedestrian, landscaping, parking, those type of things. And so we're going to try to consolidate those in the next few weeks and get some workshops
As
scheduled.
long as we don't lose traction with SJCOG to make sure that
No, we
they know we're
haven't.
working on it, and they're not gonna say you haven't made traction on it and take the money back. 'Cause I
No,
know
and
that
they
was
do.
mentioned.
Yeah, and not
in
to
their
say
meetings.
that, I mean, we are moving forward on it. They do give you, because it's a part of the Measure K project, they give you
Right.
a certain amount of time, but we are moving forward on it.
Okay, and they're aware of
we're
what
in
we're doing,
contact.
so we're still good with them?
Correct.
Okay, good. And I think that's all I've got for tonight.
Pro Temp Swift.
Yeah, I'd like to echo again, love Escalon, boy, it was a great event this weekend. It was great to see so many people out there wanting to volunteer and do some good for the town, and they did. One location that I know that they went to was the old Rite Aid, not the new Rite Aid, but the old Rite Aid, and they cleaned the entire area up. That looked really fantastic. And then you take a quick look at across the street, and that brings me up to this item. Big Boy, is there any way to let them know if they could maybe clean things up around, it's a little, I mean,
Yes, we could
I'm
reach out.
excited about the project, but it'd be really nice to
Sure.
have it clean in the meantime. Are we sending out, or where are we at on the process of sending out abatement and all that good stuff?
We have a master list of all of the vacant lots in town. They usually get 2 to 3 warnings. It's a process. We have to provide proper notification, and in the event that they don't respond to us, then we move forward with Public Works posting a notice on the property and moving forward with abatement. And so because that's time-consuming for staff and the process, we always hope to obtain voluntary compliance. And so at some point, we end up calling them and asking them to clean it up or advising them of that situation. And then at the very last minute, they'll run out there and mow the lawn. And so that's kind of what happens just about a lot of the properties, with the exception of one that recently changed ownership, is usually where it is. The notices go out, they're addressed right away, and we hear a call with most of them, and then there's a handful of them that don't get addressed until the very last minute, where we post the notice, tell them we're coming on this date, and then we get a call the day before, I mowed the lawn. And so it's just having to go through that process to get them doing. But we do have a list that's generated every year of all of the vacant lots in town that aren't developed yet.
I got hit up about Vine again Avenue, that corner there.
And we have spoken to that property owner. He had asked for a copy of the notice so that he could provide it to the person parking all the cars on that lot so they can remove them.
Okay, sure, okay.
Yeah, and so it is in process. It's just having to notify them repeatedly to let them know how serious it is. And it's a process, and because we shoot for voluntary compliance, it takes a little longer.
Sure, okay, I understand, but like I say, with Big Boy, maybe it sticks out more so like a sore thumb now because the Rite Aid area is clean.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sticks out like a sore
Oh, yeah,
thumb now.
and they're very good. We've contacted them in the past, and they'll just go right out there and clean it all up. So we can let them know.
All right, and finally, I want to agree with Ann Shaddix regarding Karen Corley. Yes, she's an asset you don't want to lose with the senior program. I do have one question, though, with the meals. Do they have enough now? Okay, all right, that was an issue a few years ago, and hopefully we got that taken care of, so, okay, good to hear. That's all I have.
Okay, in the morning, downtown Escalon, around 6:30, 7 o'clock at the Speedway. You got cars going in there 50 miles an hour. So if there's something we can do about that in the morning, I mean, it's a circus down there.
Yes, sir.
Debbie's just opened the new restaurant, used to be Nathaniel's. It's open, the food is excellent. I've eaten dinner there. the chief's eaten dinner there.
Yes, I have.
And the food is really good, is it not?
Exquisite.
Thank you. It is definitely something, if everyone was clamoring to have a restaurant in town, well, there's a restaurant. It's open, the food is excellent, so give it a try.
Show them some love, yeah.
The bathroom down at the park is gorgeous, it is. What'd that bathroom cost us?
There was a match. Yeah, you probably know better than I do.
200,000?
Oh, you wish.
I think that was our match.
Oh, no.
The restroom is on your CIP. There was funding from the state to cover about half of it.
What was the total?
The total on your CIP is 400 and,
That's why I hate prevailing wage. $400,000 for the bathroom.
404,000. And the grant was 200 and something.
Yeah, still our tax dollars. It's just, that's the trouble. We're paying ridiculous amounts of money for that. I don't know why or how it's done that way or how come it has to be done that way, but that's abuse of our tax dollars if I ever saw it. I'm glad we have it. It's gorgeous, but the price is just ridiculous. Weeds. I've had people complain about weeds. Some of them are starting to get cleaned up thanks to the city's notices. Thank you for that. We had an incident on the grounds for Daniel in the back part there where the railroad train is. The empty lot, I mean, the railroad, what's that?
Union Pacific.
What is it? Union Pacific? We had a gentleman who's somehow become the caretaker of that lot, who has gone and cleaned it up and piled up one behind one lady's house. So we had to deal with that. I met with Officer Hargraves, and I believe they're working on getting that rectified. It's a big mess, and I don't think he or anyone else has a right to do that. So I believe the not BNSF, but Union Pacific will be addressing that.
Okay, that's great.
Because it is a
In
mess.
the past for similar things.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that there's a gentleman interested in leasing the land from them, so maybe that can solve some of our problems there. Okay? And that would be the trailer place, by the way. They want to put their stock, some of their stock on that land.
Okay.
So they're looking into that. They've been communicating from what I understand. I don't know for sure how far it went. And I think that pretty much concludes what I have to say. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're going to go back to a closed session. We'll close this meeting now. Thank you for all coming.